It's game week number 5, the beginning of it, and you know what that means. It's time for another press conference with head coach Bryan Harsin of Auburn football to break down not only the week ahead against the LSU Tigers, but to put to bed, thankfully, that homecoming game versus Missouri. We're going to talk about all of the comments and the questions and a little bit of a summary of all of that here on this video today. As always, we want to remind you to smash the like button if you enjoy this type of content. And we thank members of our booster club like Thomas Manville who help produce videos like this. Disclaimer at the beginning of these videos every time, always go watch the press conference in full for the full context of everything, because the purposes of this video is to just give you a summary with a little bit of my added flavor to it. What was asked, what was said in the press conference by Coach Bryan Harsin for week 5 for the LSU game. So we are just going to be hitting the bullet points here and kind of just skimming over some of the larger topics and even combining some of the questions so that we can kind of just move on to some things that are probably a little bit more interesting. So let's jump right into it for week number 5. So I got them written down here in front of me, right? As always, the opening statements, he always starts off with the players of the week. You've probably seen them announced online right now, but I'll give them to you right here as well. Offensive player of the week, Robbie, 2 guys, Robbie Ashford and John Samuel Shanker, 2 very deserving individuals. And also, there was no other choice other than defense player of the week, D Hall, Derek Hall, the Hall monitor as I call him. Special teams was Oscar Chapman, offensive line Austin Troxell, defensive line Colby Wooden, and then their scholars were Trent Mason and Caleb Wooden. They also pointed out some scout team players of the week. We won't go through all of those, but just to note that he mentioned those in this particular press conference as well. The big news, and probably the most important thing that you need to take away from the entire press conference, is that starting center Tate Johnson, who took over for Nick Brahms, who was also injured at the beginning of the season, or even before we got started, he is now going to be out for about 6 to 8 weeks after he has surgery this week on an elbow injury that he sustained in the middle of this last game. It likely could be season ending depending on how the recovery process goes. So that is the big news from that. Also talked about the LSU Tigers and noted some things to keep in mind, obviously for his team, but for us as fans, that their quarterback's playing very well. They're very good on third downs. And of course, they've got some great wide receivers. Butte is one of those. Neighbors is another one too. And they are first in the SEC in turnovers gained. You can know that's a sticking point for Coach Harsin and how he's been frustrated with his team not winning, at least up until this point, the turnover battle all that much. So that's going to be something that he emphasizes, obviously, all week for us as the fans, but for the players as well. And he really wants to have a great atmosphere for this final 5th game of this homestand to start off the season. Whew! It's been a really long September. All right, let's jump into the questions though. And again, some of these are going to be combined together just for simplicity's sake. Just discussing the plan for offensive line now with the news that Tate Johnson will not be able to participate for the next 6 to 8 weeks because of that surgery that he will have, which is just really unfortunate. Jaleel Irvin filled in when he got injured during the game and by all accounts did a decent job and enough to keep himself in the game there. Lots of rotation and mixing and matching this week to figure out what the rotation, what the mixture of offensive line now needs to be, kind of factoring all this. You lost Nick Brahms, you lost Tate Johnson, who's playing well, who's not. It's hard to gain stability as an offensive line, isn't it? And they're going to be assessing the positions that they put them in, not just how they're particularly playing. And this changes from game to game, player to player, team to team, especially whoever your opponent is going to be. So there may be a lot of mixing and matching going forward, trying to still figure this whole thing out. Coach stresses that they've seen improvement from the offensive line individually, but the problem is consistency is what they really need to see. And I think we all see that. Coy Moore, some happy thoughts here and noting how much of an impact he made in this game, and also talked about what a great decision he made when a trick play that he was involved in got blown up and was able to make something happen. It shows you the type of athlete, the decision maker that he has the capability of being. Also made a few good catches in the game. Just really all around seeing him involved. And also saw Camden Brown, Omari Kelly get a little bit of action as well. So nice extra new flavor wide receiver wise in this game. And coach seemed to be very happy with that as well. Assessing the offense through these 4 games. 3 points that I took away from it, just from what he said. Obviously, a focus still on turnovers. That's his biggest thing right now, is that they finally won the turnover battle, and you can obviously see the result. It's funny how that works, right? Not always, but it does put you in a much better advantage to win against better talent when you win the turnover game. Situational improvements are what really they need to focus on, especially third down efficiency and balancing the offense out more. A continual need to balance the run and the pass. Assessing Robbie in his first start. Very exciting time for him. Coach was excited for him. He said that even Robbie was very, emotional about getting that opportunity, not just to play, but to start for Auburn. I think that's a big thing for a guy. That he did pretty well, made some good decision, and there was a good and bad that came from his start, and that they can now take that and assess him on a more thorough scale, because not only was he the starter, he played the majority of the game, unlike we've seen the first 3 games. So it's really a good tool in assessing the good and the bad of Robbie and how they can help him going forward to improve. So I think a lot of good things will come out of this game, especially when you talk about Robbie as well, whether it's using his legs, the decision he makes throwing, how to be a better passer, all those good things. Talking about Keontae Scott, if you've noticed that he's been letting the ball drop in front of him, at least it seems like from our vantage point, on punt returns a lot. Was asked if this is intentional. Coach said that their goal is to catch the ball in every single punt. Noted that in this last game, not just for Auburn, but for Missouri, there was some sun factors for a lot of those things that played into it. But, you just kind of have to work with the opportunities and everybody's playing against the same field, the same conditions, all that kind of stuff. You kind of have to put the emphasis where you can and just make the best of the opportunity that presents itself to you. But they do want to catch the ball and know that he is a very dynamic guy and kind of give him a little bit of freedom to do what he needs to do. Was questioned about second half adjustments, or by some people's opinion, it seems lack thereof. Both sides are going to be adjusting coach notes, and it's whoever wins that adjustment battle is really who you determine, at least from the fans' perspective, who wins the overall adjustment battle, who looks better in the second half. We need to come back to the things that we do really well. So he was talking about there's a balance of, yes, making the adjustments to maybe new things in the second half, but really trying to focus, especially for this team right now, on what they do really well. So balancing that act is really where he looks at assessing second half adjustments. Assessing, lots of assessment in this particular conference, Holden Garner's first start. You can see Coach kind of laugh and chuckle, and I think in a very endearing and good way here, talking about the position that Holden found himself in. Noted that it was a pretty tough position and did about all he could in those particular moments to come in there as a true freshman in a very tough moment to hold it together until we could get Robbie back into the game. He said that the important thing for him is now that he's been in there in that moment, experience, and now he can take that and apply that and use that, which he's already been doing, but now with game experience. So happy to have him out there for us as fans, but I'm sure Coach seems to be very happy that he got the opportunity to do it, albeit in not the best of circumstances. And lastly, he was asked about the LSU defensive unit and his thoughts on it overall. And he kind of touched on this in his opener, but emphasized again their front seven and how talented they are, the athleticism that they have, and he doesn't see a lot of holes for them to exploit, but they're going to have to find a way to do that. We talked about this a lot on this channel. LSU, yes, they might be down a little bit, still going through a transition period with Brian Kelly, but we all know they have talent. It's just a question of, will the talent match up with that transition period at the right time? And if it does against Auburn, that could be a little bit scary. So those are the overall summary, questions, comments, and discussion points from the opening press conference this week. I'd like to know what stuck out from you. Again, go check out the full press conference here on our channel if you want to watch that. And we hope to hear from you in the comments section below. On your way out, smash that like button if you like this type of content. Be sure to subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything that we put out here for you. Also, check out the links in the description for ways you can help support our content. And we appreciate you tuning in here to this particular video with E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience. War Eagle.